I have created, and you've possibly watched, my NBA Jam arcade theme video, and I also have made a light gun arcade theme video, but now let's make a Mortal Kombat arcade themed video, plus I'll go through the part 1 of the control panel, the marquee, and what I'll be putting inside this machine. So please leave a like while the intro plays. Welcome back to Basement Collectibles, and if you're new to the channel, my name is Jordan, and if you like arcades, comics, movies, and toys, please consider subscribing for more great content. It's been a while since I made an arcade video, and I thought this would be the perfect time to show you guys how I use the one arcade machine and make multiple control panels just so it can suit the needs of certain games. So for this one, of course, it's going to be Mortal Kombat. So I'm just going to do a part 1 video, show you guys the artwork that I have and the parts that I bought for this arcade machine. For the arcade cabinet that I own in the basement, it's just running off a PC. So just a Windows PC, and I just have certain files. So for the NBA Jam cabinet, it's a file just with all the 4-player, 3-player games, and of course some 2-player games that can only use the 3 buttons. But for this one, I thought it'd be great to use something where it's a little bit easier just to turn on as well. So I have the computer, you turn it on, I still have to turn on the TV and that. And then for the kids, it always seems that when we have some friends over, there's still another button they press a certain way and it seems to either exit out something or it minimizes something. I've never been able to seem to find out what buttons they're pressing at the same time, because of course it's running off a keyboard encoder, which is an iPack. So for this one, I'm going to be using the Pandora Box DX. So what's great about using the Pandora Box is that at least it's almost like a plug and play system. So as soon as you plug it in, once of course you have everything configured, of course, with the control panel, goes to the game menu, you can select certain things, you can make favorite lists. At least with the PC, I'd be adding my own games in that, but there's games already installed on here. They say there's about 3,000 games, so there's going to be a lot of duplicates, a lot of bootleg games. So most of the time, once I have this plugged in and set up, I'm going to be making a favorites list. That way, of course, all our favorite games from my kids, my wife's, and any of my friends that have suggested certain games, I'll put that on the favorite list. Then they don't have to go through 3,000 games to find out which one they would like. It's like going on Netflix, of course, and trying to find a TV show or a movie to watch. So I also like that there's a pause feature as well, and there is save states, so that's nice. Just same thing with the PC and main, but it's a little bit easier and I guess user friendly for somebody that's never used an arcade machine, or they're going through the list and it's just showing, hit one button to start the game. And of course you can set it on free play as well. So there are 2 different versions of the Pandora Box. This is the family version, so this allows me to hook up my speakers, and also I can do a VGA or of course an HDMI. The other version is for a JAMA harness. So if you have an original arcade machine, you can actually take that JAMA harness. I'm sure there's a couple things you got to move around wiring wise for the controls, but you can plug in that JAMA harness and that will allow you to utilize, of course, the CRT monitor. That's something I'd really like to have. I have a CRT monitor in my cocktail machine, and I have another arcade somewhere else, but not in the basement. But I'd really like to end up having a arcade machine down here with a real CRT monitor. So for now, this is just the family version. And of course, I'll show you the wiring, but it just inputs or plugs in here, once you actually have your joysticks and your push button set up. I bought a Pandora Box starter kit, which came with everything, the power supply and also the JAMA harness, which is nice because this is a time saver. I used to take bell wire or any other wire and sit there and I'd splice it, crimp it, put the attachments on, and it was really time consuming, but I had more time back in the day to do something like this. So it's really nice to have the harness itself, the wiring harness, go through. There is instructions. So at least that will help too if there's any other buttons that I need to know of, just up, down, left, right, and the 6 buttons each I'll be using for the Mortal Kombat control panel. So that's nice, but unfortunately with the buttons that they provide, they're pretty cheap. They can be lit up as well. And with the joysticks, they're pretty cheap as well. It's almost like an arcade 1-up joystick. So the quality's not there. But I really bought it for the Pandora Box, of course, and just the wiring harness. For the cost of the Pandora Box bundle, it was about $140 shipped to my house. So instead of using the push buttons that came with the bundle kit, I went out and ordered hat push buttons and of course better micro switches for it, just to replicate as well the look of the Mortal Kombat in the same colors. So red, white, and blue I'll be using to match, of course, as closely as possible to what the control panel in the arcade looked like. So instead of using the joysticks that came with the bundle, I went out and bought HAP Competition 8-way joysticks. Of course, 8-way and 4-way. 4-way was used in Pac-Man games, just up, down, left, right. But of course, 8-way is up, up, right, up, left, down, down, right. So able to do all the moves you need in Mortal Kombat. They're great. Joysticks. I've used a lot of these joysticks in the past on other control panels, and again they match the bat top that's on the Mortal Kombat 1 controller panel. So for the 14 buttons, which I'll use 6 buttons for each player and 1 button each for the start button / coin button. So for 14 buttons and the 2 joysticks, ran me about $60. So to be able to switch out each theme for the arcade machine, I only buy the marquee and the control panel. That way I leave the sides all black. So I grabbed the Mortal Kombat marquee, of course, and this is also backlit. So what helps with that is that you can see how the light can go through, and it'll light this up much better. And it also looks great without the lights on. So when the machine's not on, it's very vibrant. And the gentleman that does all my arcade artwork, he also does custom artwork, and he's done some custom things in the past for me too. So I will put the website. He's here in Canada, but he also, of course, ships out around the world. So I'll leave the link in the description below if you're looking to get arcade artwork done for your machines. And here is the control panel artwork. And as you can see, it is a bit customized. Mortal Kombat 1 only had 5 buttons. The middle one was the block button. So I had the graphic designer change the middle to add 6 buttons in total for each player. That way it allows me to play all the fighting games, all the 6-button fighting games like Street Fighter, all the Capcom games as well. So to have the 6 buttons, all the graphic designer did was just put the block, stretched it, put block on the top and the bottom, and added the 2 buttons. For the purists, I understand it's not the original Mortal Kombat, but of course the games are just being emulated. This is just for fun, but Mortal Kombat is one of my favorite games, or at least one of my favorite fighting games back in the day. So it's just nice to now have, you know, the 2-player, 6 buttons can play mostly all games on the arcade machine with a joystick. So again, with 6 buttons all the way down to 0 buttons. And of course, then I have the NBA Jam to play all the 4-player games in that. And of course, the gun game. And you guys still haven't seen my Golden Tee arcade machine as well. Before I got into artwork on my main machines, I used to just print out a stencil of where the button should be placed for each 2-player 6-button game. But having this now allows me to, once I cut the piece of wood, I put this over top and I take my drill bit and I just pinpoint each of the dots and drill it in, so that way it marks everything where the buttons should be placed in the joysticks. And I put this aside until the end. So it's really nice to have this, of course, for the artwork and also to become a template while I'm building the control panel. So for the cost of the backlit marquee and the control panel artwork with a little bit of customization and shipped to my house, it was about $110. So if you're keeping track at home, I've spent about $310. So normally a project like this for the control panel, it runs me around $350. A lot cheaper than going out, of course, and trying to buy another cabinet just to fit this control panel in. So that's why I keep the same template each time for that arcade machine that I have in my basement here. So that way, again, once I'm tired or want to switch it up, I switch the control panel out to the NBA Jam. If I'm done with the 4-player after a party, then we can switch it over to Golden Tee. And now I'm just excited again to have Mortal Kombat themed arcade machine downstairs in the basement. So I'm really looking forward to getting this going. So once the control panel artwork is ready to be placed inside of the control panel, I do put a piece of plexiglass to protect everything from kids, and just, it's an easy cleanup. It looks a lot nicer too. No rubbing of the oils on your hands too, to leave the fingerprints all over the control panel. Like I said, easy cleanup for the plexiglass. So that'll be in part 2's video, where I'll be setting up everything. So I'll be cutting the wood for the control panel, putting the joysticks in, push buttons, wiring everything up, getting it ready to install it in the arcade cabinet. So if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing if this is something that you enjoy watching. And hopefully you learned a little bit just about the MAME side of things, and again, of Pandora Box, just another option. There's so many options out there, from the Raspberry Pi to the computer, now this and other, 1001 type boxes. It's just nice to relive all the old 80 classic games that I remember playing. And again, it's a lot easier for my kids to come downstairs too and just hit a button and it turns everything on for them. So again, I really appreciate you watching till the end. And again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and join me on Instagram. It's Basement, MINT, Collectibles. So at Basement Collectibles on Instagram. And I'll see everybody on part 2's video. And I really hope I get a chance to get going on this soon so I can come out with part 2. And I'll see everybody on the next video. Take care.